All right, guys, welcome to August 2nd's pre-recorded Zoom for Zoom of the month. All right, so let's start off with DXY. We know from Friday that we were anticipating, excuse me, let me delete that. Sorry about that. We know that we were anticipating at least for the short term, right, a continuation of the bearish structure within the overall pullback of the swing structural range. Swing overall direction is still bullish. So you guys know that we had pointed out pretty much two relative areas of interest here, therefore being, right, one, the 50% of the inefficiency from the daily perspective plus a structure point, right, and then there's also the fulfillment of the inefficiency. And it's important to note now, right, we know from the immediate continuation, we did get that. We got the immediate continuation to the downside. Why? Because the narrative had converted itself into a bearish stance. So after we met the inefficiency here, now we are seeing a bullish transition. And this is extremely important here. Just basically this general area, that's extremely important. Let me delete all the other stuff. Right, so we see a very, very important bullish transition. We did not get that premium here. That discount, I'm sorry, we did not get the discount internally, and it's looking like there was a transition here as well, which we can actually look into right now. So we know, right, that we can only convert to the bullish sense if we have a bullish transition in play. And as we can see, there is continuation of structure there up until we get the bullish liquidity grab. This, right, is not necessarily the most tradable thing. I just care more so to see what this does. Once this is now converted, we now have signs of a change of direction. And what's important here is the only reason why I would chase here is because this overall transition is now in alignment with our swing structure, which we had covered, right, a couple of Zooms ago, that we are still bullish overall. It's just a matter of seeing when we're going to give a good transition and actually, you know, start to see those bullish opportunities with DXY and counter, you know, vice versa with EU, AU. So I know that from the medium stance, the intermediate stance, we were still bearish until now. I believe it was yesterday that we got this transition. Yep, it was yesterday, last night. We now know that we have converted into, right, a bullish transition. You can see another bullish liquidity grab, right, order flow here, right, and you could even argue order flow here as well. But we are now seeing these continuations to the upside, and it's not really looking like we're going to get, you know, many opportunities, at least as of now. If we do start to pull back down, that would kind of signify that we have a solidified low, or solidified high, I'm sorry, and then we have intermediate breaks, which would mean unwillingness based on the previous high. So I don't necessarily know if we will get, you know, let's say the top of, you know, this newly formed excuse me, right, of this newly formed turbulence point. I'm sorry about that. Newly formed turbulence point. We don't know if that's what's going to come back to, but as of now, it really looks like we are going to start aiming for highs again, just because of the overall intermediate transition, right, into the alignment of the overall swing direction, right? So how does that impact us with EU and AU? Well, right, as we said, we were more so favoring, right, a bit of a more upside, only because we had the order flow disruption, right, into, right, a discount, which gave us a bounce into the upside, right? However, we knew that we were aiming for, right, relative equal highs, right? After that, we don't know what would happen. And as you can see, that target was met, that liquidity was swept, and we now have the bearish transition in play. And the issue here is we could get another scenario where we don't necessarily get too many deep pullbacks, because now if we're looking at this from a raw sense, right, these impulses aren't giving us many opportunities. This is where you find those immediate continuations and, you know, pretty much try to catch it that way, or try to catch an internal SR here where we had the structural disruption into a premium of a turbulence point where that takes you to the downside. But as you can see, we have a pullback that's relatively structured, a pullback that's relatively structured, and here just a range, but it really doesn't look like we're going to get, you know, that many deep pullbacks. So any excuse here in terms of a structural disruption model, order flow disruption model, or, you know, order flow continuation does make a lot of sense, because from the overall direction, we are seeing, right, that we are still bearish. So something else to note here right now, especially as of this bearish transition, we're now seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 bounces, right? And we're not creating any significant new highs signifying weak order flow. So I can't necessarily favor too much of the bullish sense here. Even if we get that bullish transition, it's just relatively hard for me to justify. I would like to see what happens there from a minor intraday stance, and just see if that is even something that would make sense, because as of now, right, it's really looking like we're wanting to convert more into the upside. However, right, we know that our swing is bullish, our major intraday still is bearish, so keep in mind here, right, once we start to reach, right, these POIs up here, right, liquidity would be swept there. If we get a bearish transition here, then that would still 100% be in alignment with the major intraday bias, even if it does not align with the swing. So I'm definitely going to be, you know, paying attention to seeing what happens here, right? But like, as I said, it does seem like it's weak order flow. So based on Euro USD, it doesn't make much sense, but from DXY, it would make a lot more sense, just because it looks much more structured in terms of, right, high creates a new low, high creates a new low, right? These are looking like very strong moves. So let's see what happens up here. And that would pretty much dictate where we're going to go for the rest of the week. Right, AUD USD, same thing with EU. We were anticipating the immediate continuation to the upside, which is what happened there. However, after the liquidity is swept, you could even see a transition there. That has now converted to the downside. And excuse me, this one's a bit tricky. This is where, you know, I don't really have anything or any type of bias from the just overall direction, major intraday stances, mainly because we're seeing whiplashes here. We're seeing whiplash, right, and now almost another whiplash, right? Didn't reach the full low, right? So as of now, I don't necessarily have a favorite direction here. I would more so wait to see what happens with DXY, but from the internal stance, from the minor intraday stance, right, we do see, right, a bullish conversion, bullish conversion here, right, bullish conversion. So I would very easily see us reaching at least back up here, back into the premium, and then whatever happens based on that, I would, you know, pretty much dictate a play. And the only reason why I'm even favoring this is because of the, you know, strong momentum to the downside, right, and the structuredness that is required to even get us back up here. So if I had to make a bias, if I had to choose, I would more so favor that bearish bias. But because of the whiplashes, it looks like we're probably just going to keep ranging up, and we could probably start seeing, you know, even deeper premiums. So yeah, this one's one I'm not too sure about. Euro USD is one more that I'm sure about. It does look a lot more bearish. However, it really just depends on what happens, right, in this relative area, seeing if we get that bounce, because that would kind of align with DXY. However, the distance is greater with DXY, so you could even argue that Because this is weak order flow, you can also assume that we're actually going to come for liquidity. I'll make this a green line. You can even argue that we're coming for liquidity here, and if you're able to find certain POIs over here, right, let's say in this wick or something, then you could assume a bullish stance, which would then be, you know, a conversion of this to the downside. So it, you know, it could go either way, but I do really want to see what DXY does, at least from here. So yeah, let's see how that goes, and I'll see you guys on Friday.